Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm really excited today to do my first video for the YouTube channel. I've been really thinking about this for a while, watching some other of my friends do them, and I've been really into watching other channels and synth sort of demonstrations and gear and tech and mixing demonstrations on YouTube. So I decided to jump into the mix and do my own YouTube channel. And I do hopefully have a few things to say. I've been working on sound for 30 years, designing video games and producing music and playing in bands. So I think I have a few things hopefully to share with you. And so I'm really excited about my channel. So thanks for joining me today. So right now I have the Roland Jupiter 6, one of my favorite synths of all time. And I bought this synth about, over 20 years ago, and I was very excited to get it. One of my favorite bands, Orbital, used the Jupiter 6 extensively, and so when I saw one come up for sale locally, I jumped on it. I paid $700 for it at that time, which seemed like a lot of money, but I knew it was a really good deal. And the Jupiter 6 is, some people call it the little brother of the Jupiter 8, and it's actually not. It's really almost a completely different synth. I mean, architecturally, from a synth layout, it's pretty much the same, but actually the Jupiter 6 has a far different sound than the Jupiter 8. And so I'm gonna show you some of those sounds today, and we'll get into some of the controls on the Jupiter 6 and how it works. The Jupiter 6 also was one of the very first MIDI synths that Roland made. I don't think it was the first. Maybe the 106 was the first. I'm not sure on that, but it was either the first or the second MIDI synth that Roland ever made. And the MIDI implementation on the base Jupiter 6 was very, very minimal. In fact, it had just really almost no advanced MIDI implementation. It had note on and off and did some things like that, but none of the filters or anything moved. So a lot of people do get the synth modded, and they put the Europa MIDI kit into it. The Europa kit is amazing. Actually, I do have this one modded with Europa. We're not going to go over Europa today. I'm just going to show you the non-Europa mode, which you can boot into. And then it works as the normal Jupiter 6, and then you can turn it on in Europa mode and do the Europa features, which gives you lots more MIDI implementation and Arpeggiator changes and things like that, which are super cool. But basically today, I'm just going to show you the Jupiter 6, one of my favorite synths of all time, and it's a particularly interesting synth sound. It's not super warm like the Jupiter 8, but it's got that Roland sound. It's also a bit edgy sounding, so it really sticks out in a mix. All right, so let's go down to the Jupiter 6. All right, everybody, here we are with the Roland Jupiter 6. Just kind of go over some of the basics here. Let me dial in some sounds. Just change it to 1 VCO for now, and you can see I've got it set to a sine wave. This is actually really cool. The one thing about the Jupiter 6 I love is actually the waveform selection buttons, which is different than the Jupiter 8, which was on a rotary control. So you could actually only select a sine or a triangle or a pulse width modulation all at one time. So the cool thing about the Jupiter 8, and say I don't have anything selected right now. So there's nothing. Let's get a sine tone. It's pretty nice sine tone. Pretty basic. The cool thing about this, let's go to a triangle wave. Yep. Nice square wave there. Cool thing about the Jupiter 6 is that you can actually multi-select these waveforms, which you can't do on the Jupiter 8, and that starts giving you some pretty interesting patterns, wave patterns that you wouldn't get normally. So you can see, just adding all three together, you start getting a much more complex bass wave. course, you have VCO2, which you can do the same thing on. Let me just tune it here. Then I'll start bringing those together. Let's just go with 2 sine waves. That's both. Both together. Which is pretty nice. And then of course, let's start getting them much more complicated. And of course, I love getting a little detune action, so which is gives you sort of a natural chorus effect. Oops, distorting a bit there. It's funny how those waves stack up and they actually get louder, right? Because I'm stacking all 3 of them together. So that's really nice. Of course, cross modulation. One of the synths I actually really used to love a lot was the Korg Monopoly with the cross mod on it. And of course, the Jupiter series has cross mod as well. You get some crazy stuff. It's like a ring modulator there. You can apply the cross mod to an envelope. Actually, the really cool thing about the Jupiter is that almost everything can be applied to envelopes. So you've got VCO envelope 1 you can assign this cross mod to envelope 1, and then you can actually over here in the envelope control set the envelope parameters. And actually that's actually the really where the magic of this synth happens, because you can start morphing those effects over time with the envelopes. And you see that a lot. You hear it. I mean, that was the big orbital sound. So for me, that was a huge sort of thing to have, the cross mod and filtering effects over time with orbital. That's exactly. Actually, so kill the cross mod. Pretty nice. Then on VCO2 you have noise, which is actually pretty cool. You can just go all noise. And actually, the noise on this synth, even though it sounds a little kind of cheesy, it actually is super good for techno. Like this noise sound is like, man, you sweep that noise, that's like killer for doing techno. Like lead-ins, you can do long noise, like bursts like that, where you have the noise sort of decay over time, especially if you build it into a breakdown and just hit that, put a little side chain on it, awesome. So that noise control is super handy. A lot of people use it actually. It's a big, I don't know if you listen to Sasha, but Sasha uses this noise all the time in his songs. And yeah, cool. Yeah, the filter, let's go to the filter section. Filter is actually pretty rad. The filter has 3 modes, so you've got high pass, low pass, and you can, again, like the Jupiter 6 and most of the buttons, you can actually hit both at the same time and you get a band pass effect, which is hear that, that's some resonance. It's pretty intense. Actually, hear it stepping. Pretty awesome. There's a low pass. Pretty nice. The filter on this is I love it. Actually, applying a little LFO to that filter and get it kind of changing over time, which is actually something I really like to do. There we go. Bring the LFO down a bit. Do some of these slow orbital sweeps. There we go. It's pretty awesome. some cross mod to the envelope too. That's pretty awesome. Adding a little bit of, so we're using the envelope to control multiple effects here now. We're controlling the filter and the cross mod at the same time. It's pretty rad. Let's turn all that stuff down. Pretty awesome. Very nice Roland strings. Yeah, so of course that's the filter. Yeah, the filter on this synth is pretty great. And as far as what you're hearing now, you're probably noticing that it is a bit. I wouldn't say it's a bit tinny sounding of a synth. It's Curtis chips. So a lot of synths around this time were using Curtis chips and filters. I don't know what it is about this particular filter design that makes it sound a little more edgy, but this synth really sticks out in techno. Like if you write techno and you like a bright, choppy sort of sound, it's awesome. So let's just get into the arpeggiator. Oh, pulse width modulator, I forgot. It actually gives you some nice sort of ring sort of style tones. Just for an organ sound, you can see that. And that's just with one oscillator. That is nice. All right, Arpeggiator. Let's get into the Arpeggiator a little bit here. And this is where this synth kicks ass, and it's kind of a standard Roland Arpeggiator implementation, very similar to the Jupiter 8. And of course, you can do some pretty incredible stuff with this arpeggiator. It's got the 4 octaves up and down mode. Pretty standard stuff, but I often just kind of stick it and hold here and then just get a sound dialed up. This actually just for dialing in sounds is awesome. It'll reset if you actually fully take your hands off the keyboard, or you can add notes to it. Okay, let's just do that. Sounds good? Let's get something going here. Stick it in unison. There we go. Starts really getting good. started hearing that orbital sound. You can do super clicky stuff, or if you're really into like that sound in techno, which is actually super nice. It's great. Cool, let's stop that. Cool. Yeah, so that's the kind of the 6 for the most part. It's, you know, again, it's kind of, it's got a pretty wide all right, yeah, so that's kind of the 6 for the most part. It's again one of my favorite synths. Kind of a real beast if you're into techno, like Detroit techno and just general, you know, making kind of more experimental electronica. I wouldn't say it's the best synth for like pads or sort of you know, sort of lush sort of sounds. It's more of a kind of in your face synth, but it sticks out in the mix. It punches through really well. It's good for leads. It's super good for sweeping, filtered sort of sounds, and sort of making that sort of like a really rich, deep sort of arpeggiated sort of you know, tone. So it's got, you know, got a lot of sounds. Again, if you really want to hear this synth in action, Orbital's Brown album, or the first 2 Orbital albums, this synth is all over it. Sounds fantastic. It's what made me want to buy it. Yeah, and I love this synth. It's one of my favorites. So that's the Jupiter 6. Thanks for listening. We're going to go into the Europa mod on one of the next videos. And yeah, I hope to get into some more details where I can actually control some of the features on a Jupiter 6 through MIDI and do some more advanced stuff that the Europa mod gives you capable on the Jupiter 6. So thanks for watching. And again, if you really like these videos that are coming your way, please subscribe to my channel. I'll try to keep them sort of on topic and interesting, geared towards electronic music and you know, the way you can use some of these synths in your productions. So subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.